idea for the show.
I still don't know what the idea is.
It's about nothing.
Right.
Everybody's doing something. We'll do nothing.
They say, what's your show about? I say nothing.
There you go.
I think you may have something here.
Cross Coast Bias presents the League About Nothing podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We have our Week 5 recap. Al, we are going every other week, it seems. We had league median score 181 in the first week, over 200 in the second week, back down to 184 week 3, up at almost 220 last week. This week, we are back down to exactly what we were at last week, 184.
Yeah, it was kind of a down week overall, but not for me.
Okay. Every time we do this intro, you find something to like try to skip ahead to. And it seems every week it's a complaint, but this week you're excited. So we'll get to the matchups in a little bit. Spoiler alert, Al put up a lot of points this week. Right,
Still not as much as you. Still not as much as you. There's my complaint.
We will get there in a few minutes. Before we get there, we had a league median this week of 183.99. I'm calling it 184. We had some waivers to talk about. It was an interesting week of waivers because two of the three players we're going to discuss here didn't get claimed in our normal Wednesday morning waiver run. So on the Wednesday morning, we had Michael Carter get claimed by Big for $12. Second bid on that was Rugg at 8 and Georgia Mike at 7 was the third bid. So let's start there. Michael Carter, we had the injury to Benson and Carter was on waivers.
Yeah, it wasn't quite that clear though, because we really didn't know at that point if Benson was going to miss any time, and then suddenly he was on IR. So
exactly.
In retrospect, looks like we didn't bid enough for Michael Carter because he took over the clear early down role that Connor had and then Benson had. DeMarcado kind of stayed in that third down role and Carter took over the early downs. But yeah, it was not clear at the time of bidding that this was going to be the case.
Yeah, and that probably contributes to why Big ended up with Carter, because obviously he had Connor and then Benson both on his roster and they both got hurt. He was and he's a Cardinals fan. He's probably a little bit more aware of the situation than the rest of the league.
He was a little more incentivized as well.
Exactly. So good play by him to get ahead of things. And,
right.
Otherwise, who knows what would have happened with Carter.
Yeah, I'm guessing it would have been a lot more if Benson had gone on IR previous to this.
Right. And if that had happened, I probably wouldn't have dropped Bam Knight the day before.
Right.
And allowed Mr. Good News to pick him up for $9. I'm pretty sure that was an uncontested $9 as well.
It was. No one else even bid.
Yeah. Again, I don't know where this fit in terms of the timeline, but if we had known in advance, I can tell you now I wouldn't have dropped Bam. I had other people that I could have dropped at basically the same, I consider them the same level.
Yeah, it was very strange because they played on Thursday night, right. And there was nothing about the injury until Monday. We started to hear, well, he wasn't going to be at practice. He started the week with no practice. Maybe there's something there. He could miss a week potentially. And then all of a sudden it turned into an IR stint. So it got serious very quickly.
0 to 100
they didn't
on that one.
Really say anything about it after the game, and all week it was nothing going into the weekend.
Yeah, there was a few injuries like that this week. I don't even remember if we discussed Bucky Irving last week and then he was out.
Right.
It seems like some of the injuries came about later than we normally hear about them.
Right.
One more waiver claim of note, and this one I left for last because we're going to transition into the trade talk after this. It was Sterling Shepard, who you dropped and was then claimed for $11 by JMC. Flea was the second bid at $6.
Well, to be fair, I tried to trade him first, but that didn't work out.
Yeah. So we had 9 trades this week, but we almost had 10. So let's kind of roll this here together.
Controversy.
You and Flea had originally agreed a week ago today, last Thursday night, Thursday before the Wednesday waiver run, to trade where you would get $5 of fab, and Flea would pick up Sterling Shepard. And obviously, this would have saved her a little bit of fab and gotten her the player that she ultimately didn't end up getting. And this trade was sent and accepted on Thursday night, or Tuesday night, excuse me.
Tuesday night.
But Mel, the commissioner, was, reasonably so, because it was like 11:30 his time.
How dare you sleep
These
at
two
night?
Californians making trades at like 8:30 for them, but it was 11:30 for him.
East Coast elitist.
Exactly. These coastal elites were in bed and unable to process the trade. So the next morning, when Mel saw the trade and went to process it, you guys no longer I don't know if it was you or her or both.
It
no
was
longer
me.
had
Yeah.
legal rosters because players had come off of IR
Right.
and were no longer eligible.
Right. The plan was to open up a roster spot so I could bid on someone like Michael Carter. And that didn't really work out because by the time Mel saw the trade, Sleeper had updated all the injury designations, and then I had someone on IR who wasn't actually injured anymore. And yeah, it just caused a calamity. So now we have clarity that you must have a legal roster at the time of Mel's review, not at the time of acceptance of trade. And now I know.
Right.
And I probably won't do it again for at least 2 more weeks.
Probably. So we had our discussion in chat, and I'm pretty sure everyone who cares, can look at the chat, or maybe not everyone. We have legions of fans who don't have access to the league chat.
Right.
But we had the discussion. It's one of those that comes up every so often just because of whatever random situation. But
Usually caused by me
yeah,
in a seemingly innocuous trade that
so
somehow turns into drama.
This was an unfortunate occurrence. Obviously, if Mel had seen it, I'm pretty sure he would have just pushed it through when it happened, and none of this would have gone down. But unluckily,
We would have
that
laughed
didn't,
about
that
how
didn't take
silly of a
place.
trade it was
Yeah.
for a $5 worth of fab.
Well, the unfortunate part of it was that you were then stuck in limbo for a while, and I think you missed out on the BAM waiver run as well.
Right. Yeah, my roster was locked because I couldn't drop Shepard because he was still in a pending trade, waiting for the deliberation if the trade was going to get pushed through or if the trade was going to get declined. And eventually we decided that, yeah, it was going to have to be reversed or not. Was going to not be approved by Mel. And then after that, I just cut him loose. And then JMC, JMC went
stepped in and said, "I'll take that."
and doubled the bid of what I was trying to get
Right.
in Fab to claim him off waivers, and he scored a touchdown this week, so it was well worth the claim.
Well, I'm sure JMC was thrilled to have those extra points and not, I don't know, any pick.
Let's get to the real trade.
So let's
Trades
get
that actually
let's get to the
happened.
trades that actually were able to be processed this week. Again, I said we had 9 trades, so things are moving right along here. The first trade that went down, Benign Rug picked up Amari DiMercato, and in exchange, Mr. Good News picked up a 2027 4th-round pick attached to Rug's roster. So this trend of trading 4th-round picks to Mr. Good News continues.
So now the timing for this one is important because it was after Benson had been placed on IR, but before we had clarity over what the roles were going to be. So he was taking a shot that maybe DiMercato could have an expanded role with Benson being injured. Didn't really work out that way.
Yeah,
but worth a shot.
It didn't work out that way, but DiMercato still had an okay week and could have had a much bigger week if he had made it 1 extra yard.
Right. He still led the team in rushing on the back of a 71-yard run that did not include a touchdown because, once again, we had a player drop the ball right before crossing the plane. I don't understand how this can happen.
That whole game was just one wild play after another. The interception fumble for a touchdown recovery.
Just impossible.
The 3rd and 6 play where Kyler flipped the ball forward while he was trying to scramble away and by his own goal line, and it just kind of I, that was a bizarre. Just
Yeah, there were
what a weird game.
some plays in that game.
Yeah.
That
And
was
like I just
Cardinals
said,
fans are probably sick today.
yeah, we
I
have
would
Big,
be.
who's a Cardinals fan, and we have JMC, who's a Titans fan. Obviously, the two of them watching that game must have been going through a lot of different emotions.
Right.
All right, let's move on from this one because it's a pretty straightforward trade. Rugg is competing. He picks up a little bit of cheap running back depth in an ambiguous or seemingly ambiguous situation. Mr. Good News picks up his extra fourth round pick. All right, next one. I made a trade with Judd. I picked up Darius Slayton, and in return, Judd picked up Ryan Flournoy or Flournoy. Still not sure about that one. Got to look it up. And a 2027 fourth round pick attached to Flea's roster. Oops.
Well, this trade didn't work out for you this week. Unfortunately, Slayton, who was ticketed for a much bigger role with neighbors out, and he started the game in a bigger role. He went from playing about half of the one receiver sets to 100% of the one receiver sets. So he was going to be playing the most snaps of any of the receivers, but unfortunately suffered a hamstring injury.
Yeah, it was late in the fourth quarter. I haven't seen any updates on it, but he didn't finish, so obviously it's not great.
And they're on a short week this week. They play on Thursday, so
Yeah,
not a lot of hamstring injuries get turned around that quickly
no,
if you're
probably
not
not.
already returning to the game you're playing in.
No. But for Judd, Slayton's 28. He's never been anything special. Picking up a fourth and a lottery ticket, I guess, isn't a bad situation.
Yeah, and of course we saw Flournoy have a huge game.
Yep, led the Cowboys in receiving. Was it 116 yards or something like that?
Yeah, he had more yards in this game than he had in his entire career up until this point. And it wasn't like he was playing a ton of snaps or got a ton of extra routes. I mean, I know that Turpin was out, Lamb is out, Mingo missed the game. So he was kind of the wide receiver three by default. He ran less snaps than Tolbert. He just got a lot of targets and was very productive this week. So he may go back to wide receiver six on the depth chart here pretty shortly, but it was a nice game at least.
It always hurts more when you identify the player, go out and grab him for essentially free on waivers, and then have him for a week and then cut him or trade him away just 1 week too early and get nothing. I had Flournoy on my team last week. He had like 2 catches for 20 yards or something like that. Fine, whatever. For a free waiver claim in a league like this, it's solid depth, but sure would have liked to have that 100-yard game on the team.
Yeah, I think he'll probably go back to a pumpkin here very shortly.
Yeah, probably. But,
You never know. I mean,
Slayton
games like
out
that
there.
can buy you more opportunities.
Yeah. Yep, that's true. Let's go to our next trade. This one was also with Judd, but this time he made a trade with Big. Big picked up Taysom Hill, and in return, Judd picked up a 2027 fourth round pick attached to Al's roster. So, Judd doing his best to compete
Hey, I was wondering
with
where
Mr. Good News.
I was wondering where my fourth round pick was.
Once it leaves your hands, you just kind of have to wonder, like, where is it these days? I see my picks get traded all the time, and I'm like, how did that person end up with it? And I have to like trace it backwards and try and figure out how it made it from hand to hand. But
especially these late round picks.
Yeah, exactly.
They
These ones
tend to
just
get shuffled around quite a bit.
Yeah, sometimes these trade hands like a dozen times before the draft makes it around. I mean, these are 2027 picks, and they've already been traded at least twice each.
Right.
All right.
But
So
this was a smart pickup for Big.
Yeah, I kind of didn't realize Taysom
Savvy
Hill
move.
was gonna be back this week.
Right. Yeah, after he got hurt late last year and his age and his, physical style, we were thinking, well, that might be it for Taysom Hill as a fantasy producer. But he worked his way back, and I mean, he had a role right out the gate. He only played about 9 snaps, but he got the ball on pretty much every snap.
Right. And he'll get more work as he, reacclimates.
Right. He's not really a tight end, but he is designated a tight end on Sleeper, and that certainly helps Big's depth.
Any specific role?
I mean, he played 9 snaps, I think 7 of them at running back.
Yeah.
and a couple at quarterback. I think he
He's
actually
like
played one snap at tight end.
he's like the players from the 40s. He just plays back. Like,
Right.
what does that mean? I don't
wing,
know. Whatever
wing.
we need him to do.
He plays wing back.
Yeah. Good
But
pickup for
essentially, that's
Big.
what he does. He. I was wondering
Yikes.
what was going to happen with him and Foster Moreau coming back for Juwan Johnson, but didn't really impact his snaps much. The one that really got impacted was actually Alvin Kamara because Hill took a lot of those early down snaps, and he's already been splitting with Kendre Miller, so it could be a problem for Alvin Kamara going forward more than anybody else.
That could be a problem for Big because now he has both of those players on his team and they'll be eating into each other's work some.
Right.
He's got Kamara and Miller for that point. He's got all the people getting snaps in the Saints backfield.
Not a very fruitful backfield so far this year.
Well, Hill will have some useful games. Again, he's adding to his tight end depth for a team that came into the year with only 3 tight ends. He has done quite a bit to add to his room in creative ways because there's not a lot of tight ends floating around to be had in this league, and he's added Tonjes, Hill, Thomas. He's got on there right now. He's had Evans the last couple weeks, and now he's traded Evans away. We'll get to that in a minute.
Right. This is a league where it's impossible to add tight ends, and he just is finding creative ways to do it. This is what he's good at.
Yeah. Creative trading. All right. Speaking of, let's move on to the next trade, which also involves big team. Actually, the next 3 all involve big teams. So buckle up, everyone. We're going to be here a bit. The next one was between Big and Flea. Big picked up Mike Evans, and in return, Flea picked up Trey Harris. Mike Evans injured right now, but he's this is 2 weeks, by the way, after I congratulated Flea for having Mike Evans on her roster since the startup. Flea, come on. I just talked about this, and now you go trade him away.
She's listening.
Yeah. So, Big picks up a more of a win now piece. Flea picks up a future piece that isn't producing right now, but was fairly highly touted. I mean, he went 302 in our league, but he went much higher in many rookie drafts. I don't know how you feel about this one.
I mean, it makes sense from what both teams are trying to accomplish. Flea is trying to get younger, which she did, but
Yep.
she's not trying to do it with just picks. She's trying to kind of hit on some younger players to maybe not have a long extended rebuild. She wants to kind of get younger and retool, similar to what we have been watching JMC do with his roster, adding a lot of young players versus adding a ton of picks.
Right. Yeah, because some of those picks are hard to get as well. A lot of teams don't have the base of a team like Flea has and like JMC has, where they have some foundational pieces. Even if some of those pieces are injured right now for JMC.
We know what Evans brings to Big's team. We know what he brings. He's
1,000 yards a year.
He's a very good receiver and has been for a very long time. Trey Harris is just a wild card. We don't really know. He hasn't done really anything this year, but there's also 3 very productive receivers blocking him currently.
Right.
But in this offense, if he can find a role in that top 3 receiver set, it's a very productive offense. If Keenan Allen ages out or QJ slows down or somebody gets hurt, then suddenly you're looking at a potentially massive role. Whether he can produce with that to be seen.
Yeah. He's had a couple of plays here and there, but like you said, he's behind those other 3 guys, so he really hasn't had the opportunity to get out on the field and show what he can do just yet. But, it's a long NFL season. You have to assume at some point somebody will miss a couple of games and he'll have a chance to step in.
Right. Right now, he's a very valuable handcuff receiver. If any of those top 3 goes down, you could be looking at a very, very productive role.
And one more note for Mike Evans on Big's team. He has Baker Mayfield back on the roster, so this does provide a stack once Evans is back and healthy. Let's move on to the next trade. This one was a bit of a different type of trade than we've seen lately. This one was between Big and Benign Rug, which means that these are both contending teams with good rosters and playoff aspirations. A lot of the trades that we've seen have been between, contending teams and maybe contending, but probably not, and absolutely not contending team. So this one was a little bit different. On one side of things, Big picked up Chris Rodriguez, Braylon Allen, Caleb Johnson, a 2027 first round pick, his own coming back to him, and a 2027 third round pick attached to Ruggs roster. On the other side of this, Rugg picked up Stephon Diggs, Rashad Bateman, Kenneth Walker, and Mitchell Evans. There are some good pieces on both sides of this deal, and there are some win now pieces on both sides of this deal, some future pieces on both sides of this deal. How do you feel about this?
This was by far the most interesting trade that went down out of
Right.
these 10, just because the teams involved and the situations. And it felt like to me that Big was kind of tearing down from Walker to some younger backs and some
Yeah.
picks.
Caleb
And
Caleb Johnson and Braylon Allen. Allen hurt
we've
right now, but still, with a role.
we've seen him build heavily around running backs, and a lot of them are kind of aging up in the last year plus since he's been making these moves. So this kind of refreshes the back of his bench a little bit. He gets younger. More importantly, he gets a pick, his own pick, but a first and a third. That gives him a lot of flexibility and, like I always say, liquidity with the roster now. He's got some young pieces that he could potentially move later in the season. He's got some picks that he can move later in the season if he needs to kind of restock anywhere when we get closer to the playoffs, as we've seen pretty much every year.
Yeah, there's not a ton of teams that are competing right now that have first round picks to throw around. So getting his own back gives him a leg up on some of us. Like I've already traded my own. You've already traded your own, right?
Yep. Yeah. What it does is it keeps
And
him from
Mel's already
having to go
traded
into
his.
it keeps him from having to go into his 2028 picks if he gets to the point in the season where there are teams that want to sell but only want picks,
Right.
which tends to happen later in the year. He's got a 27 first and a couple of thirds this year and next year now to throw around.
Right. For Rugg, he had Caleb Johnson, who's a rookie, and I think he drafted him beginning of the second round, 202, something like that. Right in
Yeah,
that range, give or
early
take a
second.
pick. What was it?
Yeah, early second, right before I could take him.
Yeah. The early returns on Johnson have been basically non-existent. He hasn't really seen the field a whole heck of a lot.
Right.
Trading,
Except to blow a kick return.
well, yeah. I mean, and the things we have seen haven't been great. I'm sure that eventually he will get on the field, and a lot of people believed in him. I thought he looked like a good prospect, not a great one, but a good one certainly. And I'm sure he will get work at some point. But it's a matter of when will that happen, and will it be a timeshare? Will it be a committee? What form will that take? And it might not be as a lead back for quite some time. Big's probably looking at that and saying, well, I still believe my evaluation of this player. I like him. I can weather that storm because I have other guys like McCaffrey and like Javante, who's playing really well right now, and like Alvin Kamara and whoever else that can fill in the meantime. And Rugg looks at it and says, I can get Kenneth Walker right now and get him producing right now. That's an advantage.
And Stephon Diggs as well.
Yeah, Diggs, what, 140 something yards this week?
Right. This was a very clear motivation for Rugg to trade potential future production for right now production.
Yeah.
He is fully in win now. His window is open, wide open this year. And he's done what he needs to do to make sure that he's highly competitive.
Right.
And that's what you have to do when you're in your window. I mean, we've seen it from all the top teams already this year. And Rugg is among those top teams.
Any thoughts on Rashad Bateman and Mitchell Evans being included in this one?
Yeah, it's just useful depth. I mean, these are guys that have a role and are playing every week. They're not going to be probably huge fantasy producers, but it kind of lengthens the bench a little bit, gives you a little bit more floor week to week. And I mean, we saw Evans score another touchdown after this trade, back-to-back weeks. He's not playing a lot. I think he only ran like 8 routes again, but he scored the game-winning touchdown. It's always nice to have
Doing a
young tight
front
ends,
flip in the process.
right? It's always nice to have young tight ends.
Like you said, this was by far the most interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out when Allen comes back, what kind of role he has, the timeshare in Washington, and does Rodriguez provide some useful weeks, or is he just kind of there in case of injury? How long Diggs and Walker will be relevant for Rugg? Obviously, Walker is young enough that we expect years, but Diggs is sort of on the back end of things, in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this was big, trying to refresh the bench a little bit, get some younger players in there, get some picks back for flexibility for later.
All right, let's move on to our next one. Big made a trade with Flea. Again, these three trades all came down within a span of like 5 minutes. The first Flea trade we discussed with Trey Harris, and then this one was
Oh,
Big picking up Joe Mixon and Flea in return picking up Hollywood Brown.
yeah, Big was fully in his bag
Yeah.
this week.
I assume he had everyone propose the trades to him so he could hit accept, because if not, that's really impressive coordination.
He had them all lined up, ready to go.
So this is an interesting one. Joe Mixon for Hollywood Brown. Mixon's, I don't know, is he on IR or is he on PUP? Either way, he's not playing right now. And as far as we know, there's no indication that he's close to returning to play.
No, everything we've heard is that he may not ever return this season.
Right. Which makes this trade a little bit odd to me. I mean, obviously, Joe Mixon was very good last year for Houston when he played, and we've seen Chubb and Woody Marks doing a timeshare thing right now, and they've both been solidly productive. But I don't know. This one's odd to me. What are your thoughts?
Oh, he's banking on two things. One, that Mixon does return at some point, and that two, when he does return, he's giving back his normal workload, which will make him a very valuable running back at some point in the year. I mean, the price is not very high. Hollywood Brown, I mean, outside of his week one where he had like 16 targets because Worthy left early on in the game and they didn't have a backup plan. It was just throw to Hollywood every play, apparently. That didn't really work out so well. So he's kind of been more on the fringes with the rest of the Chiefs receivers. So it wasn't a huge price to pay. It's just he's taking a gamble. That's what it is, hoping that he can have a useful piece by the end of the year. He
Right.
can weather the depth. He's got the depth to weather it for now. If he never ends up coming back, then he's not losing out a ton with Hollywood.
Yeah. You're right that Hollywood hasn't had a lot in the way of big games like outside of week one, but he's been double digits every single week, which is a very useful floor to have, in my opinion. I mean, it's been low. It's been 10, 10, 14, 11. So it's not like he's going out there and popping off, but having that guy on your bench who you can basically write in for 10 points a week is useful.
Yeah, but this is before Rashee Rice is back, and that kind
That's
of
true.
score is not getting in Big's lineup very often, and it's
That,
certainly not going to win you any weeks.
these are
Mixon
both
could
fair points.
Mixon could potentially win weeks if he's back and he's healthy and he's back to his workload that he's seen his whole career really.
Yeah.
So
All
that's
right.
that's the gamble here.
Yeah. And in the meantime, I'm pretty sure he can just drop Mixon into the IR spot and it frees up roster room for him as well.
Right. That's an underrated piece of this trade as well. Gives him some more roster flexibility.
Worth noting, Mixon is 29 years old. Our next trade. Flea was very busy working the phones this week because she made another trade. This one with Georgia Mike. And this one, Flea picked up Jaden Reed, Chimere Dike, and a 2026 third round pick attached to Georgia Mike's roster. And in return, Georgia Mike picked up Travis Etienne. A couple of times in chat, Flea had put out that she was shopping Etienne, and I guess she finally found the trade she liked for him.
Yeah, Georgia Mike finally got involved in the action. We haven't seen any aggression or action at all from him pretty much since last year when he kind of went all in to try to push his chips in last year and didn't work out. Finally saw a little bit of aggression from him this year with this ETN trade.
Yeah, so it's definitely similar to the other things we were talking about. It's a win now move. ETN has been having a very good year. The Jags offense has been a little bit up and down, but the run game has looked good, and ETN has looked like, the most productive part of it by far. Jaden Reed out injured right now. DK's a depth long shot at best, and a third round pick is not a ton to add on to this. For Flea, it's retooling some of the running back depth, which has a shorter shelf life, into a wide receiver, and a little bit of draft capital to go on top of it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense from both sides. For Georgia Mike, he gets a productive player. ETN's been a running back one this year. That's always nice to be able to plug in your lineup.
Yeah.
He's a little bit short-handed right now, and he didn't have a ton of depth to begin with. So getting ETN really helps, and he didn't really lose out on any production. The pick, injured player, and DK is more of a kick returner than an actual wide receiver. He's a very good return man. Probably, I think he leads the league in return yards. For Flea, it makes sense to take a player that could potentially go to zero value at any point. Running backs
Yeah.
can go to zero pretty quickly in the NFL. We've
Oh,
seen
we've seen
ETN
ETN have
himself
wild
have
swings.
huge swings in value.
Yeah.
And so she kind of turns one piece into three potential depth pieces. None of them are as good as ETN at his ceiling, but we've seen Reed be a good player, albeit in a part-time role. And the other two, we got a draft pick and you've got a young receiver, are worthy gambles at this point. She just needs to add as many pieces as she can.
Yeah. And the draft pick is this upcoming draft as well, which matters. It's, not she doesn't have to wait 3 years for it to actualize. It's coming up next year.
Yep.
These player for player and pick stuff is way more interesting than the just buying a player outright for a fourth round pick or something like that. The implications for both rosters are way more interesting. So let's get away from that and move on to our next trade. Our next trade is another one between two competing teams. We had Rugg and Al make a trade. Rugg picked up J.K. Dobbins. In return, Al picked up a 2026 second round pick attached to Rugg's roster. You only traded for Dobbins like 2 weeks ago. What is going on?
Nothing is permanent on my roster.
At least of all running backs. He's not old enough for you. He's only like 26 is the problem. So this is a little bit unusual. Al, your team is firmly in the playoff picture right now. You are 8-2. Not to step on the segment later, but we discussed it every week. You're projected at like a 99% chance to make the playoffs as we've seen. And you just traded for this player a couple weeks ago. Is this simply a matter of you traded a third and someone offered you a second, so you said, all right?
No, this was me pursuing this trade. After Hampton went on IR, I said, hey, you need a running back. I've got Dobbins. I would prefer the liquidity and roster flexibility of having the pick that maybe I can turn into something else later if I need it. I didn't necessarily need Dobbins right now, and Rugg did. So that's kind of how we came to that.
All right, then. Well, obviously Dobbins is currently running as the lead back for the Broncos. This is good depth for Rugg. As you mentioned, he lost Hampton to IR this week, so it's always good to pick up an extra body at that position. None of us ever have enough running back depth.
Dobbins is good when he's out there. He's been very productive.
Yeah.
No signs of Harvey cutting into his snap share at all. In fact, Tyler Batty played more snaps than Harvey this week. I think some of that had to do with
What's with that?
How many snaps they had on third down in the 2-minute drill. But yeah, it was weird. I mean, we've seen Batty. He started out the year in this heavy role, playing all the passing downs. And then they kind of phased him out, went back to just the two backs. And then this week they went right back to the three back ugly rotation again.
I can't tell if Sean Payton is like intentionally trolling everyone or if this is just accidental.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he just has like a big roulette wheel in his office and he just spins it to decide what the rotations are going to be. Because we saw it not just there, but we saw it at receiver.
Yeah.
Pat Bryant played double the snaps of Mims this week, and he played almost the same amount of snaps as Franklin. Didn't get any actual targets, but all of a sudden now he's
He had
become the wide
one.
receiver three. Suddenly he's the wide receiver three on the team now over the other guys. Yeah, I don't know.
Don't worry, it'll be
He's
little
just
Jordan Humphrey next week.
he's just spinning a wheel somewhere.
They'll trade for him, sign him from wherever he is. All right. We're going to move on. We have one final trade to discuss. This one is fairly straightforward. This one was between Big and Mr. Good News. Big picked up Jacoby Brissett. In return, Mr. Good News picked up Ian Thomas and a 2027 fifth round pick attached to Al's
Yep.
roster. So one of yours again floating out there.
There's my fifth round pick.
This is pretty straightforward, I think. Big ass Kyler. We saw some snaps from Brissett this week. I don't know. Was he worried about injury here?
Yeah, Kyler had a weird foot thing. He came out for a couple of snaps, but came back in the
That's right.
game.
Yeah, he
But
jogged
considering it's
down the tunnel or something like that, and then they announced it was a foot injury. I was like, what?
considering it's the Cardinals and the way they've been reporting their injuries, he may be on IR by the time this recording comes out. So
Who knows? Yeah. For Mr. Good News, picks up an extra fifth round pick. He'll probably just wait until he sees another backup quarterback on the waiver wire and add him.
right. Yep. Rinse and repeat. He'll take all the lottery tickets he can get. Brissett ain't doing nothing for this roster.
No.
I'm sure he was happy to get anything for him.
Yeah. We did it last week. We folded the injuries into the matchup section. No one complained about it, so we're going to try it again. If anybody complains about it, we'll reassess. I said it before, but I'll mention it again. Our league median score this week was 183.99. Again, up and down week over week. Looks like a freaking heartbeat, up and down. Our highest scoring team this week was my team. I put up a 273.73. And I played against Rugg. Unfortunately for him, he put up a 215.43. So he does clear the median by a comfortable margin. So Rugg goes 1-1. I go 2-0 this week.
Some rough matchup luck early in the season for Rugg's team.
Yeah. He's cleared the median and lost, I think, twice, maybe 3 times. He's got 3 losses, which is not a lot. But I'm pretty sure he's got a ton of points against him.
He's been over the median every week.
Has
All
he?
of his losses are head to head where he's been over the median and lost.
Just brutal right there.
Yeah.
If that was happening to me every week, you would not hear the end of it.
The good news is the schedule will probably lighten up the rest of the way.
It can't get worse if he keeps on. He's obviously playing against, teams that are putting up a ton of points. This week he played the number 1
Right.
scoring team. That's, crap luck. All right. Players over 30 points in this matchup. On Rugg's side of things, Stephon Diggs, 31.1. On my side of things, JSN, 31.7. And AJ Barner, 30.55 on the strength of 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, Stephon Diggs was crazy. He only ran 20-something routes and he had 12 targets. Basically, every time he was on the field, there's a 50-50 shot that he was getting the ball. They didn't run a lot of plays to begin with.
No, he was very good. He had some very nice catches. So a couple, sideline catches, a couple in traffic, and Drake May looked pretty good throwing it to him.
They ran a lot of 2 tight end sets and ended up being pretty light snap share for Diggs, but he was certainly impactful when he was out there.
Yeah, made the most of the work he got. 31 points. Can't complain about that.
Right.
Was 10 catches on 12 targets, 146 yards, 8 first downs. 31 points without a touchdown is really impressive.
Yep. 12 targets on 23 routes. that's a Puka Nakua share.
That's a revenge game right there as well.
Yep.
All right. Other players over 20 points in this one. On Rugg's side of things, Deebo Samuel, 27 points. Theo Johnson, 2 touchdowns, had 26 points. He's caught every touchdown that Dart has thrown so far this year. Yeah.
Speaking of 2 tight end sets, the Giants, instead of going with their normal rotation they had all season, when Neighbors went out, they went right to the 2 tight end sets pretty much the whole game. So Johnson was out there for a ton of snaps. And when you're out there for a lot of snaps, I mean, at some point you're going to catch passes.
Well, and he wasn't the only tight end catching passes there. Bellinger led the team in receiving yards.
Right. Yeah, both tight ends were kind of the beneficiaries versus the wide receivers with Neighbors getting out.
On the other side of things, on my team, players over 20 points. Puka with 29. Jake Ferguson 29.65. Mahomes 28.47. Raheed Shaheed 23. Dave Montgomery 20. This is a pretty good week.
Yeah, Montgomery was a fun one. He threw a touchdown.
Yeah, that's right. In
Mon-
his homecoming game there, the Cincinnati native showing off in Cincinnati. They were talking about it on the broadcast. Apparently,
he
he
was a
was
high school
a
quarterback.
quarterback in high
Yep.
school. So good, good to see stuff like that.
It's always fun when they bust that out. Like the Cam Akers touchdown pass on his one snap. He comes in for the trick play, throws a touchdown.
Well, you expect that sort of thing out of Detroit a bit. I think they as a staff and as an organization kind of have more interest in doing things like that. I don't know why, but it seems like
They just get it.
yeah,
They get it, you know?
it seems like that, Campbell and his staff know what the players enjoy.
Right.
Anything else in this matchup we want to talk about? Gunnar Helm in Ruggs tight end 2 spot. So nice to see that depth playing out with the rookie.
Yeah. For the first time this year, Helm had the snap share lead over Chig. Maybe a bit of a trend going forward. The offensive coordinators come out and said he's going to get more playing time, and then he got more playing time. Then he said he's going to get more targets, and he got more targets.
Yeah.
And had a decent line this week. It's hard to have a productive tight end when he's still splitting snaps 50-50 basically with another guy in a not so good passing offense. But it's at least productive that he's already worked his way into at least an even timeshare with a guy who's been established there for a few years.
Yeah. Third time this year, Tyquan Thornton has made my roster.
Unbelievable. Off the scrap heap for both the Chiefs and you. Interesting to see how this rotation plays out when Rice comes back. You know, they have a lot of bodies.
Yeah, they got
None
a
of
lot
them
of
have been
people.
super productive. So I'm wondering how they're going to prioritize these snaps when they get Rice back. It'd be
Yeah.
interesting to see what how his role kind of evolves with Rice back in there.
You have to assume that the top two will be Worthy and Rice, and then
Right.
what kind of rotation is behind that is most important, because I think a lot of people expect that you'll see Hollywood Brown in the deep role, but I'm not sure that Thornton seeds those touches.
They haven't used Hollywood in that role this year.
That's what I mean.
Thornton's been very productive in that role. You know, we saw Justin Watson play a lot of snaps for this team over the last few years in that kind of clear out role.
Well,
And
Watson
he
was
was not
also
as productive as Thornton.
no, he was not, but he was also a better blocker than Thornton or
Right.
Hollywood.
Yeah, he played a lot of snaps because of his blocking as well. But yeah,
He
and
was,
of
he
all the
was usually the guy
receivers,
out there in the one receiver sets because he was just better at blocking than any
Exactly.
of their other receivers.
and of all the receivers, Juju's the one that's played the most snaps. He's probably the least productive of all of them, but he's out there for more snaps than anyone else.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see.
It'll be interesting to see for sure. All right. We had a couple injuries to mention in this matchup. We talked about both of them before. Darius Slayton went out with a hamstring injury for the Giants and on my team. On the other side of things, Rugg lost Omarion Hampton to IR
Yeah,
with an ankle
Hampton's
injury.
a bummer one. That's a bummer one, man. He's
Yeah,
really
this-
been coming on the last few weeks.
He's looked very good. I mean,
Yeah.
not that we expected anything else, but it's nice to see it actually manifest.
Right. He's been delivering on the hype. He's consolidated the entire backfield. With Najee out, they didn't shoehorn another running back in there just so they can say it's a split. They've been giving all the work to Hampton.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when the running back gets 90% of the snaps, this tends to happen.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's not a long-term thing. We really haven't heard anything besides ankle and IR, and we'll miss a month. We don't know anything beyond that at this point.
All right. The most important question I have for you right now is, which team is more cursed, the Chargers or our United team? Oh, man.
The Chargers aren't even the most injured team in the league right now. I'd say the Ravens and 49ers have
the
that.
Ravens look. Oh man, the 49ers, they just had no one. Impressive game by them. All right. Anything else to talk about in this matchup? Anything jump out to you?
No.
All right, I should mention I was the one scoring team. Rugg was the fifth highest scoring team this week. All right, we're going to go on to our next matchup. Our second highest scoring team was Al's team. Al put up a 269.22, and he beat Mr. Good News, Mr. Good News put up a 144.95. Not the most competitive matchup we saw this week. Mr. Good News was the ninth highest scoring team. All
He
right,
was
players
not
over
the
30 points
lowest
in this
scoring
one.
team again. We've been talking about that for weeks now. He was up to the ninth highest score. Some of these other teams are tanking a little harder than he has.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. He tanked really, really successfully last year, but because of that success, he had a lot of draft picks, and now those draft picks are on his roster and scoring points. So
Yeah. He's got Emeka Egbuka. That is the problem with his points.
exactly. So speaking of Igbuka, 35.55 points this week. That dude can ball.
Unbelievable.
7 catches, 7 targets, 163 yards and a touchdown, plus the 2-point conversion.
I told you he was wide receiver one in this class. No one wanted to listen to me.
I tried so hard to trade back in after I drafted McMillan to get him. So
He's
disappointed.
good, man.
He was my wide receiver 2 in this class, to be fair.
I'm still waiting to see what happens when Evans, Godwin, Ibuka are all there. Plus McMillan at some point will be back.
What's going to happen is Baker Mayfield's going to win an MVP is what's going to happen.
Right. This just might be the greatest show on turf.
Right. So Egbuka had 35.55. On the other side of this, on your side of the matchup, you had 2 players over 30 points. Dak Prescott with 32 and Kendrick Bourne, 30.7.
Just as we all expected.
Yeah. Well, it was a
Thursday
game,
night
142 yards.
Thursday night skeleton crew. Kendrick Bourne was wide receiver 1. They had nobody else to throw to.
What a wild game that was. The 49ers came into it missing their starting quarterback, their top 3 wide receivers, and their starting tight end. And then proceeded to put up like 500 yards of offense or whatever, like over 400 yards of offense, and scored 26 points and won the game. Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
Shanahan's got to be on the short list of early coach of the year candidates at this point with what he's done. It's a system, man.
very
The
impressive.
system
They
works.
just keep rolling.
System works.
The system works. There you go. Yeah,
Plug and
everybody,
play.
I think I've heard 100 times this week, man, do you think the Niners would have been better if they had just stuck and picked Mac Jones at 9 overall instead of trading multiple first round picks and picking Trey Lance at 3rd?
I don't know. Worked out pretty well for them.
Yeah.
I don't think they have any complaints about that part, at least.
No, probably not. But I mean, they could have still taken Purdy in the exact same spot in that instance. All right, other players over 20 points in this one. Buckle up because it's your entire team. Jalen Waddle, 27. David Njoku, 23.7. Justin Jefferson, 24.05. Garrett Wilson, 22.1. Tua, 24.24. And Jared Goff, who couldn't be in your lineup because you had 2 other starting quarterbacks over 20, also had 21 points. This was a pretty good week for your team. 269 points. I'm pretty sure that's your season high.
Yeah, finally had a ceiling week.
Yep.
It all came together this week, just in time to play Mr. Good News. Sorry.
Yeah, so a pretty solid week from your team. Anything jump out to you looking at your roster? I don't know. Nice to
Anybody
see
wanna
Waddle
talk
with a
about this?
27-point day. Could be a sign of things to come without Tyreek Hill there. What do you think?
Yeah, well, the offense definitely adjusted without Tyreek. We saw Westbrook Akini kind of absorb Tyreek's snap share, but not necessarily his target share. I don't know if he actually saw any targets, but he was out there for 85% of the snaps. So that meant more targets for Waddle and a lot more for Darren Waller, who played basically double the snaps that he had last week.
Played double the snaps, caught another touchdown. He's apparently still good.
Yeah, he's still only playing about half the snaps, but that's about what Jonnu was playing last year. And Jonnu had, what was he, end up tight end 3 on the year?
It's 3 or 4, I can't remember exactly. It was either way, it was good.
So
I
can definitely be a productive role.
saw the stat. Waller already has more touchdown catches with the Dolphins than he did in his entire Giants tenure, so that's fun. I mean, to be fair, he caught 1 for the Giants, so it's not like
Wasn't a rousing success in
No.
New York.
No, but this was a very productive week for your team. You had a couple guys like Ingram and Otten make your lineup where they haven't been in there in the past. It's good to see that depth come to play, even when the rest of your roster is just going off. All right, one more player to talk about before we get out of here. Mason Taylor, 9 catches on 12 targets for 67 yards, 26.95 points for Mr. Good News. Didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, the production has been trending up. He's been in a full-time role, and like we've been talking about the last few weeks, the Jets don't have a second receiver. So somebody's got to catch passes. I think he caught 7 of the 9 passes in garbage time, but some of that was because half of the game was
I
garbage
was going to
time
say
for the
that doesn't
Jets.
mean much when you're on the Jets.
Most of the game was garbage time, but still, you know,
Yeah.
they were forced to throw, and they threw a lot to Taylor, which is promising. That he's already kind of established himself as the second passing off option behind Garrett Wilson.
And we would be remiss if we didn't mention that Dylan Gabriel started for Mr. Good News' team. He has 2 starting rookie quarterbacks right now, Gabriel and Ward. So he's got technically a viable roster here, which is probably why he finished 9th instead of 12th.
Right? He's got some tight end points. He's got some running back points. He's got quarterback points. He's almost got a full squad here.
Things are trending in the right direction for him.
Hurry up and trade him all away.
I mean, to be fair, he did try to trade Gabriel away. All right. Our third highest scoring team, less than a half a point behind your score. I mean, less than a tenth of a point behind your score, really, was Big's team. Big put up a 269.14. He beat Criddle, who put up a 177.87. So Big improves to 10-0. Please, someone stop this man.
I've tried. Did not work.
It's Mr. Good News up to try this week, so I'm not gonna hold my breath.
We're rooting for you, Mr. Good News.
All right, Big players over 30 points had Christian McCaffrey at 30.4, and Criddle players over 30 points had CJ Stroud with a 32.01. It's the same old story for McCaffrey. He is that entire offense, even more so. I guess Bourne was there this week, but even more so when they're missing everybody. You know, he got 22 carries, another 9 targets, got in the end zone. He remains the best back in the league when he's healthy.
Unbelievable workload.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who else were they going to give? The 22 carries seems excessive and only 57 yards on it, but you had to know he was going to get a ton of work. 30 touches is, I guess, not that shocking.
He's been at 30 plus touches pretty much every week.
Right.
They just load him up as everyone else falls by the wayside. They just load more on McCaffrey's plate.
Well, it's going to give you 30-point games for fantasy more often than not because he's that good and the offense is that good around him.
For as long as he can hold up.
Right. For Criddle, it's nice to see a CJ Stroud ceiling game.
Yeah, the Texans just demolished the Ravens this
44
week.
to 10.
Yeah, that was a rough showing by the Ravens. It's nice when Stroud has no pressure and they don't have anybody in the secondary and he can just sit back as long as he wants and throw it to wide open guys all day.
Yeah.
It makes light work for him.
Yeah, only 244 yards, but 4 touchdowns and another 30 rushing yards, which I think all came on 1 carry.
Yeah, I think he did all of that in like the first quarter, and then they just put Davis Mills in for the second half.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're up 30 something points, what's the point? This is the CJ Stroud getting revenge for his first ever game in the league. He played against Baltimore week 1 his rookie year and got smoked.
Yeah, that defense is long gone.
Yeah.
The Ravens have resorted to pulling guys off the street and trading for backups from other teams just to plug people in. They made another trade today for a Loey Gilman from the Chargers just to have somebody to play in the secondary.
My God.
They signed Chauncey Gardner-Johnson off the street.
Yep. He got cut last week.
He got cut because he was freelancing and he was mad about his role, and the Ravens said, "Hey, we'll take it. We'll take anything at this point. Freelance all you want. If it comes with NFL caliber play, we'll take it."
You have to imagine the coaching staff there will
great.
probably get a little bit better effort out of him.
Well, he's going to get snaps.
Yeah.
They're not going to have a choice. He's going to be playing for better, for worse.
All right. Let's look at the rest of these rosters. For Criddle's team, Devonta Smith with 22.9 points and Darren Waller with 24.55. We talked about him a minute ago. Another touchdown, not a lot of snaps, not a ton of work, but he 5 catches, 5 targets, 78 yards is a lot of yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, and he's only out there for passing downs. I think he played 30 snaps and 28 were passing plays where he ran a route.
Well, I
So
mean,
they're not
obviously
even
Miami learned the
pretending.
lesson that the Giants didn't. If you ask him to block, he'll just retire.
He will he will retire. He is not doing any blocking,
No. Nice to
which is good. I
see.
mean, that's his they're using his skill set appropriately.
Right. I, you should be able to ask the tight end that you're paying a lot of money to block. You should be able to do that, I feel,
No,
without him saying, "No,
Not
I'm
if
just going to
it's
retire."
not if it's Darren Waller.
Yeah.
He said, I don't care how much money you pay me. I'm not putting my hand in the dirt. It's not happening.
Nice to see Devontae Smith have a good game, but we have to always talk about it when it's Criddle's team because he has the entire Eagles offense. But man, this Eagles team just looks so weird right now.
Yeah, how about Saquon 6 carries?
Yeah.
6 carries he got this week. What is
Just
going on?
bizarre, bizarre game plans, game scripts. I don't know. Devonta Smith had 8 catches, 10 targets, 114 yards. Somehow only 3 first downs on that. I mean, I guess when one of them's like a 50-yard reception, it makes some sense, but he
Yeah, it
also
feels like
got
they're
tackled by AJ Brown on the game-ending Hail Mary. Did you see that clip?
yeah.
Watch
Yeah,
that
they
clip
were
again
fighting.
because
They were fighting for the ball with each other. My favorite part of that clip is
is Hurts
watch
running
Jalen
through.
Hurts
Yes,
sprinting and
yes.
getting to
That's
the
what I was
end
gonna
zone when
say.
the pass gets there. That's my favorite part of that clip.
If that ball got knocked up in the air back towards the field of play instead of out of bounds, he might have caught his own pass.
Right.
He doesn't stop. Like he sprints full through the frame, straight down the top. Like, peace, I'm out. Oh,
That was incredible.
that was funny. All right. All right. So that's the big games on Criddle's side of things. Let's go take a look at Big's team. And like I said, with yours, buckle up because it's the entire roster. Over 20 points. You have Baker at 28.4, Javante with a 28.15, Laporta with a 25.45, Mac Jones, 24.18 in relief. Jake Tonjes catching all of those Mac Jones targets at 23.55. Sutton with a 22.4 and Ridley with a 21.35. This is a lot of high scoring players right here.
Yeah, his team is just every week we talk about it, but he's just got so many guys that can put up 20 plus points. And some of these guys haven't really been doing like this is the first time we've seen anything from Ridley, any signs of life. And he finally had a big game. He's just got so many guys that he doesn't need it from everyone every week.
The roster, obviously, we've talked about is very deep, and it shows where every week we're talking about these guys getting 20 points, and every week it's a different bunch of guys getting 20 points. You know, I'm sure he's happy to see guys like Mac Jones and Ridley step up when some of the other guys on the roster didn't have, as big a weeks as they are capable of. Yeah, before we leave, Big asked that I stick to another script this week. Big, you were right about Javante. We will all give you that one. There have been many players right about many, many takes, though. I'm not giving you as right as you requested. But
Is Big our writer now?
he's tried. He's tried. He
Trying to be our
wanted
showrunner?
his Javante take to. I think it was. He wanted me to give him, has anyone ever been as right about any player as Big was about Javante or something like that. I can't remember the exact. I could get it, but my phone and sleeper are not getting along at the moment, so I'm not going to try. Otherwise, I'll never make it back to the matchups.
I mean, we can acknowledge that he bet big on Javante, and
well, we saw the screenshots in the offseason of this Javante trade and that Javante trade. I sold him a Javante share in another league.
He bought him everywhere.
Yeah.
It has paid off tenfold.
So, I mean, we're going to put this one right up there with his by Tyler Conklin everywhere. call this year.
Right. That one not
Two
as successful.
killer decisions. All right.
Listen, the man is committed. When
Oh
he
no.
has a take, he takes it to the end.
Yep. And here's the thing: he hits more of the takes than he misses, which is why he's got the best team in the league.
Right.
All right, we're gonna move on here. I should say, Criddle was the number 8 scoring team this week. We're gonna move on to our next matchup. Our next highest scoring team was Mel's team, and Mel put up a 255.55, and he beat Georgia Mike, who put up a 178.87 and was the 7th highest scoring team. So unfortunately for Georgia Mike, he finishes just outside of the median and faces Mel's team, where 255 in most weeks is going to get you the top score.
Another huge week. This just shows how consolidated it's become at the top. We had 4 teams over 255 points, and the league median was still in the 180s.
Yeah. Well, don't worry, we're getting to Judd's team in a few minutes. We'll tell you why. For Mel's team, a couple players over 30 points here. Rico Dowdle, 34.4 points. And Jamar Chase, welcome back to being Jamar Chase, 31.5 points. My favorite stat of the week was that at one point, Jamar Chase, I believe, had as many tackles as receptions.
Yeah, it wasn't a great start for Browning until they decided they were going to go and prevent for the for the last half of the game, and they finally got some production. Yeah, most of that game was a wash.
Right. It was like you said, a lot of garbage time coming back, but the points score the same for fantasy, and
Right.
getting
We'll take them.
31 points from Jamar Chase is going to get you a pretty good weekly score. But I really want to mention
we'll take
Dowdle.
them.
23 carries, 206 rushing yards, 4 targets, 3 receptions, 28 receiving yards. The man had 234 total yards of offense. That's an incredible day.
Yeah, pretty good. I think it's the 3rd highest scrimmage yards in the last 5 years or so from anybody in the NFL.
Trey Palmer could never. All right. They're never letting that one go. All right. Other players over 20 points in this one on Georgia Mike's side of things. Jacory, Krosky Merritt, or Bill, whatever you want to call him, 29 points. Trevor Lawrence, 26.74, including the funniest play of the day or of the week, where he fell down once, tried to get up, slipped, fell down again, then stood up and proceeded to run into the end zone and score a touchdown that I'm pretty sure was the game winner. Or I don't know.
that was the go-ahead score. Ended
What
up
a
being the
wild play that was.
Yeah, and everyone's crushing Chris Jones because he just stood there watching it basically in the middle of the field because he thought he was down and he was out of the play a couple times. He's just like,
Twice. He fell over twice. He tried
got,
to get up and stumbled again.
he just got stopped.
Did you see when they asked him after the game what was going through his head at that moment? He just goes, panic.
Right. Yeah. Very truthful answer.
Great answer. Like, yep, that sounds right. That's what I would be experiencing in that moment too. So on Georgia Mike's side of things, no one else over 20 points, but he didn't have, outside of the tight end spot, he really didn't have any like bottom end. Like he had Keyshawn Booty was his lowest flex score at 9.55, which is low, but not like criminal lose you the week low. His real problem was the tight ends. He had Ruckert at 9.8, and Harrison Bryant was his other tight end score with a 2.75. That was really what lost him the week.
We've talked about the roster, and I mean, he wasn't going to catch Mel anyway, but the reason he was under the median, he doesn't have a second tight end, and he didn't have his first tight end because Pitts was on bye. So he's really kind of scraping the bottom of the roster to get guys in the lineup this week.
Okay, let's take a look at the higher scoring team here, Mel's team. A lot of other big scores here. Justin Fields, 26.17. Rashad White with a 24.85, filling in very admirably for Bucky, who missed this week. Travis Kelce with a Renaissance score of 25.85, even if the line wasn't super impressive. 7 catches, 61 yards, and a touchdown is very good, but not, the Kelce scores of old. And Josh Allen with his usual 21.67 points. A couple other guys in Brees Hall and Kareem Hunt just missing out on that 20-point mark. So a very good week for Mel's team. Slightly disappointing week for Georgia Mike's team.
Yeah, we got to see Brees Hall without Braylon Allen. It was basically a split backfield with Isaiah Davis. The only difference was Hall
Oh,
got all of the goal line carries and all the short yardage stuff this week. So Davis kind of took the Braylon snaps, but not necessarily the Braylon workload. So that's good for Hall going forward. And then on Georgia Mike's side, we saw Bill, the full breakout. This is
yeah.
the first game that he's actually started. They've been starting, some of the other backs, Rodriguez, Eckler early in the year. And then Bill would come in on the third drive pretty much every time. The first 2 drives would be other players. He'd come in on the third drive and be the primary early down back for the rest of the game. This one, he was the primary early down back for the entire game. And he took the larger share of the goal line work, which is why he ended up with the touchdowns in the big game. So if this kind of goes forward like this, he doesn't have to play the passing downs, which he isn't currently, but if he can get up to like 70% of the early down work,
Yeah.
we could see him
No, and he's
into a similar role as some other guys we have in this, like, Henry and players like that play primarily early downs and don't play a lot of passing down snaps.
right. And like you said, he's not playing the passing down snaps, but they do seem to try and get him like 1 or 2 like screen looks or dump offs a game. He got 2 catches, turned into 40 yards this week, 39, I guess, but still. He
Yeah,
was
they
extremely
use running backs.
efficient on the ground, is
They
what
use
was impressive to me.
Right. They use the running backs in the passing game, even on early down. So
Yeah.
just the fact that he's out there, he's going to get opportunities.
Let's move on. We got Flea as our next highest scoring team. Flea put up a 189.10 and she beat Judd. Judd was our 12th highest scoring team, unfortunately for him, and he put up a 97.64. So Flea takes the 2-0
little
week.
bit of a drop off to this matchup.
Yep, a little bit. From 255 from L's team to a 189 for Flea's team. Yep. That's a pretty big drop. I should have mentioned that. Thank you for catching that. No players on Judd's team over 30 in this one, but Flea had 2. She had Sam Darnold with 31.64 and Jonathan Taylor with a 32.25. Or excuse me, 32.35. I wrote it down wrong.
Yeah, she continues to be carried by a handful of kind of cornerstone players that can put up big weeks every week, and that's
Well,
the bulk
one
of
of those
her
was on
scoring.
bye this week, no less.
Right. That's the bulk of her scoring every week. She's been stealing wins from some of these lower ranked teams because they just don't have that kind of ceiling that she has.
Yeah.
Even though she kind of shares in some of their roster deficiencies, she's got a much higher ceiling than some of these other teams. And it's kept her in the playoff race as of now. She continues to sell, but she continues to win. So we'll see what happens with different matchups. But
Yeah, right now she's in the 6th seed, and
right.
I'm pretty sure she's a game up on Georgia Mike, right?
Yep.
This week she had Darnold and Taylor do well, and then Stafford was her only other player over 20 points. To be fair, he had 28.6. It was a very good game. But outside of that, there's a lot of single-digit scores on this, up and down this lineup. Her RB2 was Jerome Ford at 6.8. She had Grant Calcaterra and Mike Gesicki in her flex spots, who combined for 11.3.
She had a lot of tight ends in this week, and her tight ends are not good.
No, her actual tight end spots were populated by Bellinger and Oliver, who combined for 26.7. That's fine. That'll get you through a week. They both had 13 points.
Yep.
It's not a ceiling game, but it's serviceable, especially when we look over on the other side of things. Judd only has 1 tight end eligible. His second tight end spot is literally empty. Like, it's not a 0. There's no one. He does not have an eligible player to put in it. He had, Dawson Knox get a 5.5 for his tight end 1. Great. His tight end 2 is literally empty. But he had three players over that 20-point margin. He had Amon-Ra St. Brown with a 22.5, Ryan Flournoy at 22.65, and then Jake Browning at a 20.64.
Yeah, probably the last hurrah for Jake Browning. Put up a
Yeah,
lot of points in garbage time, but I don't know that the Bengals are very pleased with how his couple of starts have gone because they traded for Joe Flacco today.
yeah. And I mean, Flacco was benched last week by the Browns. They're going with Gabriel, and even without that, they have Shedeur Sanders on the roster there still, who I'm sure he'll be happy to move up to the number 2 spot, right?
We'll see.
Yeah, so we do expect a switch from Browning to Flacco, right? Like they wouldn't make this trade otherwise.
Right. Yeah, it was funny because earlier in the day the beat reporters basically said, yeah, the other option for quarterback behind Browning is not currently on the roster. And they had Brett Rippon and they had Mike White on the practice squad and some other guys hanging around. And they cut Mike White and then they cut Brett Rippon and then they traded for Joe Flacco. So there's your answer. I'm
Yep.
assuming you don't trade for a 47-year-old Joe Flacco to to sit on the bench, right? I mean, this was a move because they're trying to stay competitive and keep their season in alive in a very weak AFC.
I was going to say
AFC is not good
a
this
weak
year.
AFC, and even the AFC North itself doesn't look like it's out of reach just yet. They're not that many games back.
Right, they're still ahead of the Ravens.
Yeah. Which I don't think was expected. Pittsburgh is 3-1, but Cincinnati's got 2 wins.
Right.
They're only a win back in a game back in the win column. Obviously, they're 2 back in the loss column, but
Yeah, this is a try to save the season move. So I assume that as soon as Flacco is up to speed on the playbook, he's going to be out there. This may be the last week that we see Browning.
and let me say, as the manager who just acquired Joe Flacco, I am thrilled.
Yeah, new life.
Give me
'Cause
Joe
it was
Flacco throwing to
unlikely
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Sign me up.
it was unlikely he was going to get more starts in Cleveland. They really want to see the young guys.
Right.
And in Cincinnati, he's probably going to start very shortly here. That gives you some more quarterback depth for sure.
All right. One other thing of note before we move on from this matchup, Grant Calcaterra.
Gravy.
Yep. Hurt his oblique in the first quarter of that game. Did not come back. I don't think they've put him on IR, but he's out for the time being. It's one of Flea's 27 tight ends on the roster, so it's worth mentioning.
Right. Every tight end matters in our format, unfortunately. And he
All
was in
right.
the starting lineup this week,
He
so I
was.
guess he
He
does matter.
only took like 10 minutes for him to get in there, and then who knows, he might have had a good game if he had been able to come back. All right, we're going to go on to our next matchup. Our next highest scoring team was JMC. JMC put up a 143.43. He was our 10th highest scoring team. He beat Flinch, who put up a 135.28 and was our 11th highest scoring team. JMC had no players over 20 points. I'm not entirely sure how we won this matchup.
The score was 143 to 135. I don't know how many 30 or 20, even 20 point.
Flinch had a 30-point game on his team, and he also had a 23-point game from Dalton Kincaid, 23.8 and 32.6. Like, he literally had 55 points from those 2 players. How did he lose in a matchup where the winning score had a 143? Anyway.
I'm guessing because the rest of his team did not score very many points.
Exactly. The rest of both of these teams were somewhat disappointing. The real story for JMC is that he had a bunch of guys in those middle teens. Like, Downs had 14, Achan had his 17, Dart had 18.
Was that Sterling Shepard pickup? Got him the win this week.
Sterling Shepard, 12.9 points. None of these guys really worth talking about, I guess.
We could talk about some of the younger guys. I mean, Tesla, for the first time all season, was the primary receiver in 3 receiver sets. He played like 90% of the 3 receiver snaps. He caught a touchdown because that's all he does is catch one pass.
All he does is catch touchdowns.
But the snap share is promising. I mean, you have to think with the snaps will come more opportunities to be productive.
Yeah. And speaking of rookie receivers getting higher snap shares, Isaiah Bond also with a 5.9, on only 2 catches, but 7 targets, definitely taking over a lot of snap share for that
Yeah,
Cleveland offense.
he's been the clear wide receiver two now for a few weeks, and it's not like Jerry Judy's been tearing it up as the wide receiver one so far
No,
this year.
that whole offense has been somewhat disappointing.
So yeah, definitely opportunity. He continues to increase his involvement every week. So that's promising.
So we saw another week with the New England running backs unable to hold on to the ball. A fumble for Ramondre, a fumble for Gibson, and then he tore his ACL and is done for the year.
Yep.
And still, Travion Henderson with the smallest nameplate known to man.
What was going on in that game? Why was his name so
It's been that
tiny?
way all year.
Has it? That's the first time
Yeah,
I've noticed.
it was more noticeable for some reason, but I'm told that it's been that way all year by my brother-in-law who's a Patriots fan. So uh, he's still not getting a ton of work. I saw on one play though he went to the wrong side for a handoff, or for a fake rather. So maybe if this is a case of he doesn't have a full handle on the offense yet.
McDaniel's offense is notoriously
Yeah,
difficult. We've heard this
a
usually from the
million times.
receivers, not often from the running backs. But we've seen a lot of running backs in his time that were not the most heralded players.
Right.
Guys that kind of were lower drafted or undrafted. Backups from other teams that
Talking
kind
about
of
Danny
came in and
Woodhead
got into roles. I
and
mean,
Shane
he's
Vereen,
one of many. But the one promising thing for
James
Henderson is
White,
that once
Sammy Morris. I'm sorry.
the set,
I keep going. I could play this game for a while. Rex Burkhead. We could do random New England backup running backs for like 20 minutes.
so in the second half of this game, Henderson was the primary running back.
He
They
was.
were in they were in passing mode, so he didn't see a lot of carries. We didn't get a lot of production in the stat sheet
That
from it.
that was when he went to the wrong side at least once. There might have been twice this game.
But he was the primary
Tough to
runner,
play
and
action
now
fake when the quarterback is, behind, the running back is behind the quarterback.
and without Gibson now for the rest of the year, I mean,
Yep.
they're going to be forced to distribute those carries. Gibson was getting a good amount of snaps. He was playing probably 30% of the snaps every week.
Well, he had
So that
six
those snaps
carries in
have to
this
go
game.
somewhere. Yeah, those snaps have to go somewhere. They're probably going to go to Henderson.
God, I
Let's hope
hope
he
so.
can learn quickly because Ramondre just cannot hold on to the ball.
It's brutal.
The 10 fumbles in his last 20 games or something like that.
It's,
Not great.
I mean, at what point do you just say, like, we need a different player in there because you can't hold on to the ball, even if
I don't
it's
think
not
they have
Henderson? I
any.
don't know who else they have on the roster available.
They
If
don't
you're
have anybody else, so
man,
limited options right now. And Ramondre's a very good pass protector. He's a passable receiver. He can get tough yards. He's a useful player when he can hold on to the ball. He's good. So they're kind of forced to play him at this point because I don't know that they trust Henderson enough, even with the fumbles for Ramondre.
right?
We'll see how it plays out.
They'll go sign one of those 27 Patriots running backs we just mentioned. They'll go sign Jonas Gray. What's he up to these days?
Jonas Gray.
Is the Garrett Blunt still working out? All right. One other thing worth noting here. We mentioned Gibson's injury on Flinch's side of things. Brenton Strange already put on IR with a quad injury. You were telling me he left the game, but he was like on the bike or something, working out. Looked
Yeah,
like he might come back. And
he was riding the stationary bike for like half the game on the sidelines. I was like, oh, he's just trying to loosen it up. He'll be back in any minute. And then suddenly he never came back to the game, and then he went on IR immediately after. So apparently the injury was worse than it looked or how it appeared in the game.
IR for him. I looked, pretty much every backup tight end on that team is already rostered, so don't even
Oh yeah,
bother. Waivers tonight.
Hunter. It's going to be Hunter Long. Hunter Long took over as the
Yes, he's on
primary.
Georgia Mike's team.
Yeah, he took that helps Georgia Mike because he is pretty much desperate for a viable tight end too, and he
Yeah.
may have just got one gifted to him because Hunter Long took over as the primary tight end when Strange came out. Munt took some snaps, but only to block. Long was the only other tight end that ran any routes after Strange got out. So, I mean, Strange has been, useful for fantasy. Long could fill that role. I'm guessing we'll probably see more targets to the receivers or the running backs. Probably not going to see a one-for-one replacement,
Probably
but
not.
you never know. Any production is helpful in this league at tight end.
Yep. All right. We're going to Dynasty Daddy and our playoff prediction odds, percentage fantasy chance to make the playoffs. Yeah, I'm putting words in different places this week.
That was a mouthful.
Yep. All right. Well, let's see what we've got this week. Our percentage chance to make the playoffs really has not changed at the top.
I would not expect it to.
Big is 10-0 at the moment. He is still at 99%, greater than 99% chance. My team and Mel's team both 9-1, also listed at greater than 99% chance. Al all the way down at 8-2. What a bum, listed at a 98% chance to make the playoffs. And joining the 90% club this week at 7-3 is Rug. Rug is a 92% chance to make the playoffs. So
the playoff race is basically over already. You can go ahead and lock in 5 of the 6 teams, and I think the 6th team is probably going to come around shortly as Flea continues to sell pieces.
So right now in that 6th spot at 5-5, Georgia Mike is listed at a 78% chance, and Flea, who is currently 6-4, is listed at a 32% chance. If
Right.
I have not called your name, please go to the left because you are less than 1% chance. Mr. Good News, Judd, JMC, Flinch, and Criddle all listed less than 1% chance. Those teams have combined for 6 wins.
It's still wild to me that we have this much separation between the haves and the have-nots this quickly. But yeah, that's how it's played out. Not like we expected coming into the season. We thought there might be 9 or 10 teams that could compete for a playoff spot, and it seems like there's only 6 that are going to compete for 6 playoff spots.
Well, I mean, Flea is listed. I don't know if I said it. Flea is listed at 32% chance at 6-4.
Yeah, you did.
It's not inconceivable. Like she's been making a lot of moves, but they've been, she's been getting players back. She's been getting a little bit of extra capital. It's if she keeps winning games like this and Georgia Mike cannot separate, we could really be looking at an interesting race for this last spot.
Yeah, we'll see. That's really the only thing interesting in all of this,
chance is not nothing.
Yeah, it's not nothing. It's not as bad as the other 5 teams below her.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen
have the lowest. But to have the team in 6th already at almost 80% chance to make the playoffs. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of crazy this early in the season.
No, we have not seen a season yet where we had this many teams out of it this early. We've had a couple of years where we came into it knowing that a couple of teams weren't going to be legitimately competing, like last year, but it was not to this extent.
Yep. Now we're watching a race to the bottom. The 5-team race to the bottom might be more interesting than the top.
Yep. And, someone's going to get that number 1 overall pick. Last year we could write in Mr. Good News from the start. This year we cannot. Like he's got no wins, but let me look at the max points. I don't think he's at the bottom of that right now. Well, he is actually. Mr. Good News is at the bottom. Max points for. He's at 616. Right after
he got a
that
head start.
Right after that, JMC 711. So almost a 100-point gap there.
Yeah.
And then Judd at 724. But Mr. Good News has a bunch of young rookies. Judd has been mostly trading for picks as opposed to young players. So it's not inconceivable that as Mr. Good News's players develop and Judd trades for a few more picks here and there, that could flip-flop by the end of the year.
Yep. We might need to start tracking max points for over the back half of the season.
Right.
See how that race goes. That might be a more interesting race.
Yeah, we could start updating that. So, a little bit extra info on the segment this week, which just gives me an excuse to come up with a new name next week.
There you go.
Percentage chance to make the playoffs, max points for, and max points against.
Just so we need more words added
more
to
word soup. To be fair, you are 3rd in points against right now, despite your record. It's pretty impressive.
I was 1st before I played Mr. Good News.
Yeah. I think that about wraps it up. We will be back. We will catch everybody next week. But until then,
See you in the league chat.